ये ताल बिगाड़े, यार दिल झूम के गारे, अपना हर दर्द छुपा के नाचे और सबको नचाए, मुख पे घूंघट डाले, नैन दो मटवाने, आज कोई चलाए सच के बयान कर यार, ये बंधन नाते सारे तोड़ के मनवारे, 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 ओ मनवारे, न तड़पारे, अगन दिल की न सुलगारे, न भड़कारे, न झलकारे, इन्हें नारे, मनवारे.
Manware. You know why Manware was important? Because you know how it was a tradition to have one of these like folksy songs, like Vital Signs would have to do Samli Saloni and Gore Rang Ka Zamana, right? And then Awaz had to do like Jaane Kaun Thi Hasina. I thought Manware was that for Noori. Like it was mandatory to have one of those songs and to have like a patriotic song for all the pop acts that were coming up.
Not just that, and a Punjabi song too.
Yeah, Punjabi song too.
Somebody talked about this actually. I forgot who it was, but they were talking exactly the formula of a successful album. Had to have a patriotic song, had to have a folksy song, and had to have a Punjabi song for it to be accepted widely.
Was that like a spoof skit or something?
No, it wasn't a spoof. It was one of the artists. I forgot. I was watching an interview a long time ago, and that's what it was. But yeah, I mean the formula works, obviously.
Yeah. So the thing with Noori was, I think we found about it more in late 90s and not so much 2002-ish where Generation 2, because of that Seattle thing I was talking about last time. Then, because that's when I really started listening to Pearl Jam and Nirvana. Late 90s, even though, around the corner everybody was listening to it at that right time in the early 90s. I didn't catch on to them until late 90s. But then, we got hooked on it. And now there's a guy in Pakistan with a band named Coven, an underground band, Coven, that was doing the Seattle type sound, and I actually was able to get some tracks of Cohen, and I think barring the production, lacking the production capabilities of this, like the lyrics, the vocals were kind of hard to understand and stuff. I think if all of those things were good, then it would be much easier to listen to, but it was still excellent piece of work. And we saw Ali Noor come out of that.
So Ali Noor was part of Coven?
Yeah, he was initially. I think he was.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if he was like a full-time lead singer or maybe he did a couple of songs. But he does come from there. So
yeah, I remember they. I don't know if they did it on purpose back in the Napster days, but there was a Mother Love Bone song, Shangri-La, I think.
Yeah.
And they had put Cohen's name on it and let everybody download it, so people would be like, okay, it's a similar sound. Let's download more of their songs.
Yeah.
But it was Shangri-La by Mother Love Bone.
I think we downloaded it as a whole album, and like half the songs were Mother Love Bone and half of them were Cohen.
So they were going for that grunge. They were definitely into that grunge scene and the grunge sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they actually started. Noori was, so like you mentioned about Coven, but just for some clarification, they actually started 7 years before their first debut album of Suno Ke Main Hu Jawan.
7 years, wow.
Yeah, which came in 2003. So before that, Ali Noor and Muhammad Ali Jafri, who was another band member of Noori originally, they had this band Coven, which released an EP called Not In Your World. And Noori was originally known for their live acts. And even before that, I think there was
even before that, there was that video
Right.
of Ali Noor like jumping on top of the bed, right? Like he was like 14 years old and just like doing a bunch
I
of
haven't
covers.
seen that.
Or that,
What is
I
that
remember there
about?
was some
Really?
like behind the scenes videos of Junoon recording the live, not a live album, but one of their studio albums.
Yeah.
And you saw like a teenage Ali Noor just sitting there in the
Are
corner.
you talking about the Parwaz recording
I think
sessions
so.
that came
Yeah,
out?
yeah, and you just saw
I
him.
know Ali Noor's in there, yeah.
So what, like 97, 98 then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, because Parwaz came out in 99.
Yeah, so I guess he's been there for a while. I mean, it seems
I think
like
one of the things that I've come to appreciate about Noori, well, first of all, I think they kind of hit it big, precisely because they do have a more poppy sound, but also because the vocals have always been very good, right? And let's be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, in
Oh,
Desi culture amongst the Desi audience, I think vocals are always appreciated, and if they're particularly good, I think that's why Junaid Jamshed and Vital Signs hit it so big. but just their like sort of subject matter. I mean, I know in previous podcasts we've said things like they just add a bunch of maybe 5 different words and they just put them together somehow and arrange them. But I mean, you had really deep sort of like topics, right? I mean, you had domestic violence issues, you had really sort of class issues, you had issues about like the soul and sort of how you like are sort of whether like you're carrying yourself with humility or not in this world.
And then don't forget, like Ali Hamza went on to write one of the most popular Coke Studio songs, Ek Alif.
Right.
That came out of Nouri. That's still from the first season, not the first season. Third or fourth season.
And I would not classify that really as a Sufiana song. It's more like an earthy, sort of like
it's folksy,
very indigenous, folksy like song that is also devotional at the same time. Right?
See, that's what's been my frustration with Nouri, that
for sure.
If,
but it's not
if
like
they
Sufiana
want
in
to
the
be,
sense that Junoon was.
Whenever they try to be artistic, there's really nobody better than them. So Ek Alif is a big example. But what they want to be childish and don't care and put those forward lyrics in songs, then there's nobody stopping them.
And that's
when
when you have to say they're very
so
versatile, right?
It may actually be a respectable thing. Like they just own their stuff. Like they own their ish. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And you'll like them because they're just so freaking good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the art is in the eye of the beholder, or in the ear of the beholder for our case. But that's Nouri. At that time, they needed to write an album like Suno Ke Main Hoon Jawan, and they did. But remember, leading up to Suno Ke Main Hoon Jawan, they did release several tracks, which included Uncha. Now, I think Uncha is just a very deep,
it's a mature song.
Very mature song on society and people and how judging we are and
glass houses,
classism and all sorts of different things. So it's not like Nouri just came on a bunch of kids and they're writing about youthfulness and being happy. They're not.
And I mean, I was a teenager at the time, or like sort of early 20s, and I remember.
So it must have worked for you.
It did in the sense that whenever I'd go back to Pakistan, like I would see that contrast so heavily. I think obviously you see class issues sort of all over, but you do see them in a very apparent way when you walk around in Pakistan. And so when you listen to those lyrics, you're sort of like, wow, I mean, this really hits right on a very sort of like political level. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I you have to applaud them. And even in their newest album in 2015, right? I mean, they had the Hey Ya sort of like anthem songs, but then they also had like some really hard hitting, like deeper songs. Yep. Probably forgetting the titles of those.
Like
it was the Ali Azmat portion in Punjabi that
was around for a while.
Where Ali Hamza is reciting Faiz Ahmed Faiz's poetry stanzas.
I mean, the intro song, Ek Tha Bacha. That song is pretty.
Yeah, I know, but I guess before you even go to that specific portion of their career, even their timeline altogether, maybe we can just circle back on Suno Ke Main Hoon Jawan as like an album altogether, because it really was that big of like a landmark, I guess, when it comes to that generation of Pakistani music. And I think that was just an album that took like the entire Pakistan by storm, really, or even beyond that for people in the diaspora. Because it was kind of, if you really think about it, is the hallmark pop rock album for Pakistani
when
music.
there was no concept of pop rock,
And
especially for like teeny bopper high school prom rock that that a lot of kids in the US were into, with Weezer and Blink-182 and stuff.
And not to mention the production quality. If you look at the timeline of Pakistani music production, album production, with Junoon's Inqilab, I think probably being on the forefront, or the dividing line between old school and new school. And then you had Nouri with excellent production quality, and then Aro and all these other bands where they're not using synthesized drums anymore, actual live recording studios, and having legit equipment to do all this. So Nouri was one of the forefronts on those as well, where they had a very good quality produced album.
And I'd mentioned this, but special shout out to the fact that they had Gumby as their drummer, who is a Goanese Christian from Karachi, and just sort of like, in many ways, I think paved the path for a lot of, because I think there's actually a couple of drummers who have came through just on recent iterations of Pepsi Battle of the Bands who are actually also from the same sort of like Christian Karachi community, who have taken up like percussions, and I'm not saying that
they all happen to start with Nouri somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Remember Gumby's opening on Dil Ki Qasam? Yeah. The drums on that, it takes it to another level.
So I mean, personally, I'm inspired. I'm a drummer, and I'm heavily inspired by Gumby. Gumby is one of my favorite drummers. And talk about giving back, like we were from our previous episode. He did do a series with the Youth Records. They did Youth Records, and that was Gumby trying to help these young up and coming.
So artists. Was that a Gumby production?
He was heavily part of it. I don't know if it was his production,
he was a big part of it. Yeah.
He was the one producing all these artists, these college kids and stuff. and getting them going. But as a drummer, I can definitely say, I started playing Nuri on drums. That's how I was imitating Gumby without even knowing who Gumby was. I got to find out about him much later, and you find out that he actually played with Vital Signs. He played with Junaid Jamshed. There's videos on
big ones, man.
on YouTube, where they're playing in England, I think. Asadem is on guitars, Gumby's on drums, Shahi Hassan and Rohil Hayat, and I mean that's a legendary stage right there. That's an excellent video. And then Malcolm Govias from Junoon, who recorded on the Inqilab album, got to see him live, when he played at the House of Blues in Los Angeles. So that was, I mean, all these things really inspired. And once again, I think Malcolm is also Christian community Karachi guy. So there's a pattern here, obviously. So they're doing something.
Right.
No, it's also Milestones. That one band, Milestones. They had Alan Smith, who ended up playing for Garwa.
Yeah.
And
Alan Smith now plays for Rocklight. I think there's a new band in town.
Really?
So I'm gonna use this the Christian topic to segue into something. Shalom Xavier and Fusion. Now, how don't we don't talk about Fusion enough? Are they? How come they're not on our radar as much as these other guys?
I think Fusion kind of lost their brand after Shafqat left. But the core of the music came from Shalom and what's his name, keyboard guy.
Emo,
right? Those guys are the ones making the music, and they're still making the same quality music, right? So that's all still there. And now their new singer is a quality singer.
He is a very good quality singer.
He's young, and he can definitely get to Shafqat's level with much more practice and
as a matter of fact, I think he's a better fit for the band than Shafqat. Shafqat is probably better off on his own, especially when he went to India and he got some Bollywood contracts. Then he was just okay, he's out there now. He's flown. But I think this new guy, his name is Khurram. He is a phenomenal vocalist. He's a really good fit, and some of the new songs that they've produced with him are excellent songs. Shalom is actually, he came out as a guitarist when we already had the top 4 or 5 guitarists of Pakistan, and he comes and he weaves his way and wedges his way right into that top 5 or 6. And I don't know his history. I don't know where he comes from. I just remember seeing him on some Najm Shiaz music videos. That's about it. But he came in and he's phenomenal.
So I think a lot of these guys, like we had a friend here who used to do session for Junaid Jamshed and Vital Signs.
Right.
And he's living here now, and he's playing in the local band scene and everything over here. But he's in music videos for all these Vital Signs.
He's in music video for Ali Haider.
For Ali Haider, all these guys. I mean, so there was this core group of musicians that used to play with and support each other, play with each other, end up in music videos, and that's where some of them made it big, and others.
It does seem like a very small world, to be honest.
I think so.
It's not a very big sort of industry, especially when it comes to the sort of pop rock genre. But another thing that I was thinking about, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they always they were very fluid about sort of their Punjabi and their Urdu.
Who was? Nuri?
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Dobara Phir Se Soni Chhad De Mahiwal. But you listen to it and you were just sort of especially as I grew up as an Urdu speaker and didn't really actually understand Punjabi for the longest time.
And there's no
but no, the point is I don't think there was any band who did that in such a good way.
There's no ambiguity that Nuri is from Lahore. Their Lahori identity is very strong. It's all over their music videos. It's in their
what I mean is
songs.
Vital Signs
is a beautiful thing.
Vital Signs was also from Lahore Bindi, right? But they did not do Punjabi lyrics, as far as I know.
Yeah, incidentally, Vital Signs don't really have any Punjabi songs.
Challa is not a really...
Challa is a remake of a folk song, anyway, right?
So Challa is not in Punjabi.
It's not even Punjabi. I think it's Saraiki.
I don't know.
No, I think it's mostly Urdu.
It's mostly Urdu.
Challa kehta khudaya mujhe kyun.
So, but that's the point, is that I was just thinking this out loud because I was thinking about what my favorite song is of them, and Dobara Phir Se, the acoustic version, is my absolute favorite.
Oh yeah.
Absolute favorite.
Absolutely. And that was another thing. I don't know if any other band was doing acoustic versions of the same songs on the same album. They did 2 songs. I think they did. What was their title song on Suno Ke Main Hu Jawan?
No.
Dum dum dum. Tsh.
Oh yeah.
Dum dum.
Oh, okay.
Janata. So they did a slow version of that too on the same album, and then they had a Dobara Phir Se. They did an acoustic version of that.
Yeah.
So that was the thing.
And then Jume Sari Zameen Sara Jaan.
Yeah. So we emulated that when we did our EP. As Project 26, we put an acoustic version of our title song on there too. So that was inspired by all these.
And I think elements. They are often accused as like of this sort of like thing of like, oh, bas matlab dunya inke liye bas wohi hai, bas matlab just for frolicking in like a field of flowers and suno ke main jawan. That's not true. I mean, I think, right? I mean, they did get really deep into a lot of issues, and I think I could respect that, and I just think they're a very versatile band.
And then they jump into
for a very long time.
And later on, you see Uncha comes out, and you have Mere Log that comes out. You haven't even touched that song.
Yeah. Well, we
so I see a pattern here, by the way. The whole series of Generation 2 bands, the discussion seems to be centered more on Nouri than anything else. So can I assume that was your favorite band out of that whole thing?
I mean, they were definitely influential. Probably one of the top most, but I wouldn't personally. I mean, it's a personal thing. I don't think they were my favorite. I would say Mizrab was definitely one of my top two. Just that hard sound. That's what I always desired, and that just always hit me hard. Like unknown songs like Muntazir from Mizrab's the second album. That was just that song
interesting about Faraz and Mizrab that Faraz played a lot for the first wave in the 90s.
Yeah,
and with he played a whole album with Collage. But then he didn't become his own, well-known figure until Mizrab's Mazi Hal Mustaqbil comes in by 2004, 2005, I think, or 2004, right? I actually remember getting my copy of it in the mail, and I was newly married at that time, so my wife was like, "What the hell is this guy into?" It came in the mail. Because what?
So a funny thing about that, Faraz Anwar actually went on an interview, and people were like, he's like, "ये लोग मुझे पता नहीं क्या समझते हैं, भाई हम लोग मुसलमान हैं, हम कुरान भी पढ़ते हैं. Just because I'm playing metal music does not mean I'm into devil worshipping." He had to go on national TV and justify that, man. I play metal, but it's okay. I don't worship the devil, man.
Yeah, actually, Ali Bhai mentioned the fact that he. Well, apparently there was like some video where he had like his guitar on one side and like a DMAZ on the other. And maybe that was very deliberate. Like, hey, make sure this gets on.
Talk about versatility, Faraz Anwar. I mean, you go from Mazi Al Mustaqbil to क्या नाम है अभी कोक स्टूडियोस उसने cover किया था.
He was doing song for Sajjad Ali.
He did songs for Sajjad Ali. No, what song did he do?
Ujalo
Mein, right? Ujalo Mein is such a pop rock ballad, and then
you have plenty of metal traces.
Yeah, and then you have the Pakistan metal version. Compare those two songs from the same exact
there's a story behind that, by the way, on the internets. When they released that song, I don't know, I think it was a rumor mill, but somebody said that Ruhail Hayat was very upset about that. And then he pasted a comment about from Ruhail, but who knows if it was from him or not. And then Faraz Anwar got pissed off at Ruhail Hayat, apparently. That who the hell does he think he is? So, I mean, it was maybe these people were, lying and then saying that, these guys are...
Yeah, I mean, the Pakistanis, we love to troll, so and the internet's a bastion for that, so it was
We are the best at memes.
Yeah. But, Mizrab also had Sari Shami. They were touting that as the fastest BPM, beats per minute song in all of Pakistani music history. I don't know if you guys ever heard that song.
Really?
But
no, I haven't.
Yeah, Sari Shami.
Sari Shami.
Sari Shami. Look it up. I was like...
What album is it from?
It's not an album, it was a single. It was released after Mazihad.
Really?
Yeah. And they're like, This is the fastest BPM song in the history of Pakistani music. It's just straight up metal, Very, very, very fast paced.
Was it just like the Izhar song they did for cricket?
No, it's even faster than it. It's a league of its own. It's not for the masses. That's why it came off as a single.
No, Faraz still looks like a very young person. He doesn't,
He is. I mean, he was here in the States. He was touring, on the East Coast, playing just, music at bars and stuff. And
one of those reptilian people that don't age.
Right. Yeah, he's a chameleon for sure. He can what he did for Collage. I mean, so you were talking about Collage. Collage had that their popular song Fasla, right?
Yeah.
The first version of that song is nice. A nice song, very heartfelt, very emotional song. And then Faraz Anwar comes on their other album and he redoes that song for them. And the type of guitars he adds and just changes the whole emotion of the song. It's just intense.
This Collage album just sounded like Faraz just came in and just erupted.
Was Faraz on Khamoki Zami? That was before. That was him, right?
In that album.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. That song.
That's a beautiful album. The whole Collage thing.
All right, so who else came out of that?
So for me,
generation? We got Aro, we got Nouri, we got Mikal Hassan, Fusion.
We mentioned Call already.
One thing about Nouri's a great sing-along band.
Yes.
Okay, they're a sing-along band.
I was gonna ask, is that I do think Nouri is one of those bands where if you were just to get hanging out over
that's what we do
at an evening, The reality is we kind of all just jam out.
We just opened the session.
More often than not.
We just opened the session with Manore. Whenever we're hanging out together as family or friends, you know, what do we sing? We sing Manore.
Exactly. It'll just come up, and because everybody knows
sad boy song.
Yeah.
No, because everybody knows it, right? So it is a very poppy sort of sound, but it's enough where you can like still leave with your dignity intact and be like, okay, that's cool.
People love it. It's a crowd pleaser. It definitely is. You play that in any crowd, and they're just gonna be like, please do it again. Please do it again.
Right. I remember I heard once actually, like a friend told me that her sister came in to that song when she was a bride at her wedding.
As a walk-in song?
As a walk-in song.
As a bridal walk.
That's a weird thing.
It just sounds nice.
That's just a lack of like knowledge of the language.
It's like, oh, do you know what the song is about?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now what happens with all these bands? They come in, they start breaking up within a matter of 5 or 6 years.
यार
And
तू
boom,
हमेशा breakup की बात करता है बस.
because boom, now we have Coke Studio, and according to you, that really killed the whole band culture.
It did.
It did.
And really, no new bands came out of during the Coke
I think
Studio
band
reign.
culture was already dead before Coke Studio came.
I think Coke Studio probably
I actually
fill a vacuum.
I was gonna mention this in the previous episode, but I actually think it was a number of factors that actually contributed to the death of the band culture. For one thing, the security situation across Pakistan was really deteriorating, right? So you couldn't have these like outside venues all the time with like young kids just hanging out. On top of it, sort of like culturally, religiously, things were kind of getting more and more conservative. And then on top of it, then you had this like Coke Studio project, which I don't think was made with the intention of killing the band culture. But if you don't give exposure to these bands and these bands have always existed. It's not like from 2006 to 2015 there were no bands in Lahore and Karachi and Islamabad and just
they just weren't our cup of tea.
No, I think it was just they were not given the commercial opportunities that I think previous.
Well, a lot of them were very metal, right?
No, that was more indie, like Poor Rich Boy and those guys.
Yeah.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. A special shout out because a lot of the Pakistanis in the West here in America, they tried, along with us as well, to create bands and become part of that band scene. A lot of them were fresh transplants from Pakistan. So a special shout out to Opre. They had these guys were from Houston. Was Momo part of Opre?
Momo was Opre.
Okay, and then Momo had a second band from Texas again.
Moj.
Moj. And
Moj was
Khush Fehmi.
great.
That was 2005, 2004 along there.
Khush Fehmi made it to Spotify. I think.
Yeah, and then there was another band called Shore. I don't know what the makeup of that band was, but I know they had two, one or two Pakistani guys and one or two American guys. So La Pila De Saki, that was one of their popular songs.
That was a couple of good songs.
Funky song, So we tried here too, just try to get part of it.
No, LA has a band history, by the way, Pakistani bands, and we're part of it. I mean, a lot of people do know Project 26 around here.
Remember Nasal?
Nasal was the guys from the Valley, and then kya naam tha, guy from Huntington Beach. Usne band banaya tha na?
That was Hamad's band.
नहीं Hamad का नहीं not Nasir क्या नाम है the guy with
Silk Jive
though that was
and then Y2K
that guy
so late
did not age well at all.
They were amazing though. They had
a really good sound.
They had a really good
singer too,
because that guy was a metal guitarist from he had the Guns N' Roses thing going on. And he would play so freely, like he's just riffing all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, no, but I guess going back to Nuri, they kind of matured significantly in Coke Studio, and I know we're kind of like bagging on how they destroyed band culture or whatever it may be. I think band culture had already been on its downhill.
So remember, Coke Studio, it was 6 seasons of Royal Hayat before they started letting strings and other bands like
Nuri have more say.
Right.
At the same time, they contemporized a lot of various different Sufi songs and a lot of different classics that necessarily people in younger generations didn't have that much of an attachment to.
Right. For myself, I knew a lot of these songs, having heard, in my childhood, because parents would listen to it or they would end up on movies or shows or something like that. But then, like you said, the contemporary version of it, then it kind of revitalized that. A lot of people were getting back into folk songs. Sami Meri War, that Junoon actually, Husn Walo solo is inspired by Sami Meri War.
Ek Alif with Sain Zahur.
Right.
You have Aur Vini Waho, which was really great because Ali Hamza was singing in baritone, but then he has his mom coming on a Sagar Vina. Right. Which was just really amazing. Because you start to see that...
By the way, that's the only female instrumentalist ever on Coke Studio.
She's the only individual who can
other
actually play that
than Zayd Bangish's partner.
Well, they played banjo and guitar and stuff.
Yeah, Hania played guitar and Baby Sanam and other things like that. But I think if you look at how Nuri kind of grew through Coke Studio, you can see a great deal of maturation that takes place over the course of their involvement in that project. which is really great because now you can see some of the biggest classics that they've been involved with. Sometimes, I guess, within latter years, it's taken more of a pop trajectory with like and other things like that. But we have them really kind of involved in like really perfecting a lot of fusion sounds with Barchanade and a bunch of other things of that nature.
But that seems more like Ali Hamza's.
It's got Ali Hamza's name written all over it.
Stamp, Chapa.
The Ajare More Sayyan.
Right. It's Nouri, but the driving force, and I think you can see a distinction. Like Junoon, there's a very towards the end of their run. There's a huge distinction and a dividing line between what Salman Ahmad is writing and what Ali Azmat is writing, right? You think Salman Ahmad would write a song like Papuya? No, he will not.
Nope.
Right? Or Tara Jala, he will not. Right? Those are Ali Azmat songs. You know it. You don't even have to read the label. You know that's their label. And same thing with Nouri. Like there's Ali Noor writes a certain type of song, and Ali Hamza has a certain type of thing. And you know what? It all comes together, and that's where we see that.
But Ali Hamza is so brilliant at writing folk songs that you would think he's like 70 years old, and he's been doing it for like 55 years or something, It's amazing.
I mean, it's a musical family, so their mother is, the female instrumentalist on that very specific instrument. So it's not like these guys just came up like we did. Our parents weren't into music; we just kind of learned on our own. But these guys, Hamad can speak to that. His mother's an excellent singer, and she's a little well known as well. So you come from a musical family, you kind of have that upbringing that you can get to that level faster.
Jafar Zaid's mother is Nayira Noor.
Is she?
Yeah.
Really, I did not know that. Wow, because Jaffar's freaking amazing, dude.
Very
incredible.
Very talented.
His brother actually, he had a music video out about a song that he did too. A lot of people don't know about it. It was brilliant too. I forget the name of it.
All right.
They've definitely come a long way since. And that's the beauty of like following an artist over a span of like 20 years, right?
Honestly, listen to the Beatles' earlier material.
Oh yeah.
Look at the lyrics. You're like, what the hell is this?
Okay, if Nouri kept making those songs for the last 20 years, everybody would have been burned out by it. They're like, it's the same album over and over again.
Right.
So you have to appreciate that an artist can evolve and they can create.
But we also grew up with them. You know what I mean? I was 17 or 18 when that song came out.
To be honest,
and I'm not gonna lie, I was down with it.
Yeah, of course.
At that age.
I mean, I love that whole album.
To be honest, I have a certain level of admiration and respect for artists who just come and do whatever the hell they want, as opposed to try to pigeon themselves into something that would fly or work. Junaid Jamshed used to be really conscious about what's going to work and what's not. If it was up to Junaid Jamshed, Hum Tum album would not even have happened.
That was real.
Are you saying that you're a big Nickelback fan because they just make the same thing over and over again?
I can respect them, admire them for it, and not listen to them at the same
here's
time.
Here's one thing that I was thinking about is that we have this second wave that we're calling it here with bands like Nouri and Mizrab and this, but at the same time, older bands were reinventing themselves too. Okay, and the one to highlight is Karma.
Oh yeah,
right. Karavan. I mean, listen to their original sound and listen to what happened in the early 2000s, and it's a completely different band. When the Gardish album came out, I mean, that album is just unique, and it does not sound like Karavan at all. Frankly, I didn't know it was Karavan until I'm like, wow, this is the same band, from earlier.
So that's an interesting take, because we talked about Faraz being transgenerational. Is that safe? What kind of word is that? Never mind. So Karavan.
Yes, that's a word. That's a word.
It's in the dictionary. Look it up.
That just doesn't sound right. But Karavan, then you can put them in the same bucket, because going from their second album to their third album, which was Gardish, Gardish is deep, it's hard hitting, and it's haunting, and it's got everything you want in a Generation 2 album.
Yep.
So, wow.
Yeah, so they and Strings to an extent, I would say they reinvented, maybe in the quality of sound, but not in the type of sound.
Well, Strings, to be honest, they tried being a little bit more Bollywood, because Dhani album came out and they had just come back from India.
And they did have a lot of success in India. They got the Spider-Man movie. They got that, and that song that.
Na Jaane Kyun.
Na Jaane Kyun. That was.
We know exactly what you're about to say.
They made that song for the children of Iraq when the Iraq War, when the U.S. was attacking Iraq. That's what they made it. And then I don't know. I don't want to say that they're sellouts, but Sony India came knocking. They're like, we want the song for India Spider-Man release. Like, here you go.
But to feel good about something, out of all the Indian artists, they picked the Strings. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely. And then they had that one song with the Indian band. They did a joint song.
Euphoria was an amazing band.
Which I think is a separate, fascinating discussion. Maybe we could just end on this, but this sort of question that we throw out there is that why in Pakistan in particular is this sound of this like rock or like rock pop, whatever you want to call it, that alternative sort of mix, why is it so prevalent and been so successful in terms of quality? I mean, pure quality.
In terms of musicianship
and not been successful across the border in India. And I think a
I
lot
have
of
a
this has to do
theory.
with culture, with sort of like the political history, with the exposure.
Well, have
to-
you guys
I have
heard
a
Indian
theory.
bands?
I have a theory. I mean, my theory is
Sneak
basically.
preview, not the whole thing.
Huh?
Sneak preview, not the whole thing.
Yeah,
We'll do another
basically.
episode.
So, I mean, the disintegration of the Pakistani movie industry of Lollywood, I think, was actually a massive blessing in disguise. Because we started to see it was like headed on the way down, like in the mid '80s or whatever it may be, and you
I
start to
like
see
that. I like that.
this vacuum of like music, of what is artistry going to look like, and so forth.
And on the other side of the same
Exactly.
coin is that Indian film industry is so strong
It's so dominant.
that
yeah.
even brilliant musicians, the only way for them to be successful is to be part of that industry.
Yeah,
Because it's almost like there was a particular sound that was imbued into the culture there,
take
and that was their identity.
Take Arijit Singh, for example. He's a popular Bollywood singer, but he's a musician. When he plays live, he has a guitar in his hand. He's playing along. He
Where
loves
do you
to play
think
live.
Sonu Nigam comes from?
Yeah, Sonu Nigam. These are
Sonu
Yeah.
had a pop hit.
Absolutely,
it's just
that's right.
the playback singing environment is the only one in
Yeah.
which you can be a massive success. in
And I've actually
India.
heard that he used to listen to Junaid Jamshed.
Probably all of them. Then.
Sonu Nigam.
Kidding me, really?
Yeah.
You छोड़
No, मैं छोड़ नहीं रहा. I swear I read this somewhere. शायद छोड़ा I don't know.
किसी और ने छोड़ी होगी.
किसी और ने छोड़ के
I've,
मुझे
I've
बता.
had Indian friends that talk to me about Junaid Jamshed having like the most beautiful voices ever,
So I mean, to end it, I guess one thing that's really nice to see on Coke Studio and Pepsi and stuff is Indian fans, and they're coming on. They're really appreciative that a scene like this exists.
Absolutely, yeah.
The same language, same culture.
You go through the
similar
YouTube
culture.
comments of any of the videos.
Yeah.
Of
No, there are
It's
actually
always-
these like
it's always
cute,
praise. It's
there are
always
actually
praise.
these like cute Punjabi couples that I like watch, and they'll like have like a review show
Oh
together.
yeah.
Like after
Oh.
they watch like an episode,
I'd like to
and
see
they'll
that.
they'll like review it together, and I don't understand half the things that they're saying because it's all in like Punjabi, and I'm just like, but it's really cute. It's really adorable to see that. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Much
Peace
love,
and
respect.
blessings from across the border and across all borders. Let's wrap it up here.
Hashtag
My name is Adi
borders.
Qazi, and my co-host Hamad Alam, and we got Mr. Omer Qazi and Zawar Jafri here. And so long, everybody. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda hi hafiz.
That's gonna be our signature movie.